Hi everyone! Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Lily. Today, we have a very special guest. Her name is Sophie. Hi Sophie! How are you today?
Hi Lily, I am doing great. Thank you for inviting me. I am very happy to be here and talk to your listeners.
Okay, listeners, have you ever opened a textbook and then bam, Instagram calls your name? You look up and half an hour just disappeared. Why do we keep falling for that? I feel attacked in the best way. Seriously, my phone is like a magnet when I'm supposed to be working. So, is the solution as simple as just moving it out of reach?
It happens to the best of us. The real problem is distraction. Phones, notifications, even those random thoughts about dinner plans, they all sneak in while you're trying to focus. And suddenly, you look at the clock and realize your English study time evaporated. Honestly, yes. If you put your phone in another room, you create this little barrier. Even 15 minutes of totally focused study beats an hour of distracted effort. It's all about quality, not just quantity.
You know, people brag about multitasking, but I always end up mixing my notes with my grocery list. Can anyone truly learn that way?
I've seen students switch between a grammar lesson and texting friends, thinking they're saving time, but splitting your attention just means you remember less and get frustrated faster.
That's so true. When I'm half watching a video and half studying, neither sticks in my brain. Maybe we need to treat focus like a superpower.
Exactly. Even short bursts of real focus can do wonders. It's like your brain thanks you afterward you actually feel progress.
So, we've tackled distractions and multitasking, but are there other sneaky time wasters students should watch out for?
Definitely. One big trap is overplanning. Have you ever spent ages making the perfect study schedule but didn't start the study itself?
Totally. Sometimes my to-do list takes longer than my homework. What's another classic trap?
Endless searching for the best resource, like hopping from app to app instead of actually using one. It's easy to feel productive, but it's just another way to avoid real work.
I'm guilty of the over-planning thing. How can someone set a goal that gets them moving instead of stuck in the planning phase?
Start really small. For example, decide you'll study vocabulary for 10 minutes after breakfast. Make it a routine, not a big project. Once you get moving, it's easier to do more.
That's smart. The smaller the starting point, the less scary it feels. Plus, it's easier to actually do it every day.
Exactly. Little wins build momentum. Before you know it, you're fitting English into your life instead of waiting for the perfect time.
You brought up the perfect time. I can't count how many times I've said, I'll study when I'm less tired, or after I finish this one thing.
It's a classic trap. The perfect time never shows up. Life is always busy. If you wait for everything to be calm, you'll end up waiting forever.
So, it's more about seizing the time you do have, even if it's just those 10 minutes in between errands.
Exactly. Small pockets of time add up. It's about consistency, not perfection.
Speaking of consistency, I've heard the idea of micro-studying. Is that really effective or just a trendy buzzword?
Micro-studying is real. Short focused sessions like 5 or 10 minutes can help your brain absorb new language better than cramming for hours.
So it's totally fine to squeeze in vocab on the bus or review grammar while waiting for coffee?
Absolutely. Those little moments turn into real progress over time. It's all about building a habit, not a marathon.
That actually reminds me one of my friends adds English to her daily life, like labeling things at home or thinking in English while cooking. Does that really work?
It works wonders! When you weave English into your everyday routine, you're practicing without even realizing it. You stop seeing it as a chore.
So, making English part of life is less stressful than strict study blocks.
Exactly. Everyday practice is sneaky, it's effective, and much more fun.
But what about staying motivated? Sometimes it feels like you're not making progress, and that's discouraging.
Tracking even the smallest wins helps. Write down new words you learned or note when you understand a new song lyric in English. It keeps you moving forward.
That makes sense. When you can see your progress even in tiny steps, it's easier to stick with it.
Exactly. Celebrate every step, no matter how small. Motivation builds when you notice you're improving.
One thing I've heard about is finding an accountability partner. Does it really make a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Having someone check in with you means you're way more likely to actually study. It could be a friend, a tutor, or even an online group.
Like, If I promise my friend I'll review vocabulary before our next chat, I'm not going to flake out so easily.
Exactly. A little bit of friendly pressure goes a long way when you're trying not to waste time.
You know, sometimes I spend forever trying to get every answer right on a worksheet. Is that helping or hurting my progress?
Honestly, perfectionism is just another time waster. It's better to make mistakes and learn from them than spend ages on every detail.
So, messing up a bit is actually part of the whole process?
Exactly. Mistakes are proof you're trying. If you wait until everything is perfect, you'll miss out on real practice.
I get distracted so easily, though. Are there any tools or apps that can help keep me on track?
For sure. There are apps like Forest or Focus Booster that help you stay off your phone and concentrate for set periods. Some people even use the classic kitchen timer.
Oh, I love the idea of planting a digital tree while I study. Anything to make focus more fun.
Gamifying your study time really works. It's a little reward system for your brain, and it fights distraction in a playful way.
What's your top tip for turning English study into a real habit and not just a once-a-week sprint?
Pick a specific time each day and tie it to something you already do, like after lunch. When you link the habit to another routine, it becomes automatic.
Oh, so like study right after my coffee, and eventually it feels weird not to do it.
Exactly. The more automatic it feels, the less willpower you need to get started every day.
Let's talk about celebrating wins. Why does it matter so much for language learners?
Celebrating even small milestones boosts your confidence. When you recognize your hard work, it keeps your spirits up and motivates you to keep going.
So, even writing one good sentence or understanding a tricky word is a reason to do a little happy dance.
Absolutely. Every step counts. The more you celebrate, the more progress you'll want to make.
Last week, I totally fell off my study plan. How can you bounce back if you've wasted time or missed a few days?
It happens. The key is to start small again. Don't try to catch up all at once. Just do a little today and build back up.
That's kind of a relief. I always want to make up for lost time, but then I get overwhelmed and avoid it.
Exactly. It's about moving forward, not punishing yourself for the past. Every fresh start counts.
We've covered so much today. If you remember nothing else, take these 3 things. First, fight distraction, move your phone away. Second, focus on quality study time, not just long hours. Third, celebrate your wins, no matter how small.
And here's your action step. Right after this episode, set a timer and do 5 focused minutes of English practice. Start tiny, just get moving.
Thanks for joining us, Sophie. Your advice is gold, and I hope our listeners feel ready to make every minute count.
Thanks for having me, Lily. And to everyone listening, just remember, small steps every day lead to big rewards.
Ever tried learning a language just by letting English podcasts play in the background while you game or sleep? Today, we're digging into why that might sound smart, but isn't the magic bullet people hope for?
I've seen so many people try the just listen and you'll absorb everything trick, and honestly, it's not that simple.
By the end of this episode, we're going to bust some myths, explain why active use is key, and show you how to make listening actually work for you.
We'll break down passive versus active listening, how to turn input into output, simple ways to practice speaking, and I'll even share why Lily's dog is a language learning hero. Let's get into it.
So, Sophie, why do you think people love the idea of just listening to English while they do other things?
Honestly, it's tempting because it feels effortless. You're doing something else and hope your brain just soaks it all in. It's like dreaming of learning by osmosis.
Yeah, sometimes I wish I could just nap my way to perfect English. If only it worked like that.
Right? But the truth is, your brain needs attention and engagement to actually build new connections. Just hearing words isn't enough.
That brings up a good point. There's a big gap between hearing and listening, isn't there?
Absolutely. Hearing is just sound entering your ears like background music. Listening means you're focused, picking out words, and actually processing them.
Like when I tune out during a boring commercial but suddenly pay attention when my favorite song comes on.
Exactly. If you're not mentally present, your brain treats language like white noise.
So, all those language CDs people used to play while sleeping? No magic results, right?
Nope, science doesn't support it. Sleep learning sounds cool, but your brain needs to be awake to form memories from language.
That probably explains why I've never woken up fluent in Spanish after dreaming about tacos.
If only Taco Dreams taught us vocabulary. Sadly, you need to be conscious for real progress.
What about beginners? Is there a smart way to make listening work for them?
Definitely. I always recommend starting with simple stories or short conversations, something you can follow and repeat.
So, less Game of Thrones, more Peppa Pig?
Exactly. Simple, clear language makes it easier for your brain to connect sounds and meanings.
This makes me think. Just hearing the words isn't enough. You have to actually use them, right?
Yes, I tell my students all the time, it's not about how many hours you listen, but how often you speak or write.
So, the secret is not to just absorb, but to produce.
Exactly. Output is where the magic happens. You find out what you know and what you need to practice.
Can you break down what you mean by input and output? Sometimes the terms get thrown around a lot.
Sure. Input is when you're reading or listening, you're taking in information. Output is when you're speaking or writing using the language actively.
So, if I read a whole book in English but never say a word out loud, that's just input.
Exactly. Without output, it's like training for a marathon by only watching other people run.
I've noticed I remember words better after actually saying them out loud. Is that common?
Very common. Speaking builds muscle memory. Your mouth gets used to the sounds, and your brain gets faster at recalling words.
And it's way less scary to mess up when you're alone, or just talking to your dog.
Exactly. It's a low-pressure way to practice. Confidence grows the more you actually use the language.
You mentioned to your students that even 10 minutes of speaking daily can help. Why is it so powerful?
Because it's consistent and manageable. Short, regular practice keeps your brain engaged without feeling overwhelming.
That's true. 10 minutes a day is much easier than an hour once a week.
Exactly. Tiny steps add up fast, and you'll notice improvement way sooner.
One thing I love is chatting with my dog in English. He has no idea what I'm saying, but it's good practice.
That's honestly brilliant. Pets are the least judgmental listeners, and you get to practice without any stress.
Sometimes I narrate what I'm doing, like, now I'm making coffee. It feels silly, but it helps.
I love that. Even simple self-talk makes a difference. The goal is to turn passive words into active habits.
I used to be embarrassed about making mistakes out loud, but honestly, my dog never laughs at my grammar.
Mistakes are gold. Every slip-up shows what you need to work on. And with animals, there's zero judgment, only tail wags.
Now, I almost look forward to catching myself. It's like a game. Can I say this sentence better tomorrow?
That's the perfect attitude. Treating mistakes as learning moments keeps things fun and motivating.
Is there a way to make passive listening less passive? Like, if I want to use podcasts, what should I do?
Great question. Instead of just letting it play, try to repeat phrases out loud, or pause and write down new words.
Sometimes I repeat a whole sentence after the speaker, like shadowing.
Exactly. Shadowing is fantastic. You're training your ear, your memory, and your speaking muscles all at once.
Is there ever a time passive listening is okay, like for advanced learners?
It can help with getting used to the rhythm and melody of the language, but it's not enough on its own even for advanced speakers.
So it's like seasoning. You need the main dish of active practice.
Exactly. Passive listening is a nice bonus, but you can't skip the main course, speaking and writing.
What's your ideal mix of input and output for a language learner?
I'd say aim for a balance. Listen or read to learn new things, but always follow up with some speaking or writing.
Like, listen to a short story and then try telling it back in your own words?
Exactly. That's how you make sure you're not just collecting words, you're making them yours.
All right, let's wrap up with what really matters. First, hearing isn't learning you have to engage with the language.
Second, output, like speaking or writing, is where you build confidence and real skills, not just by listening passively.
Third, even a few minutes of active practice every day, yes. Even talking to your dog makes a huge difference.
Here's your action step. Pick a short English clip, listen to it, and then say one sentence out loud about what you heard. Simple, but powerful.
Have you ever stared at a huge English dictionary and thought, should I really try to learn every word from A to Z? Honestly, that sounds exhausting and a little pointless.
You're not alone. So many beginners think they need to memorize every single word. But trust me, knowing what an aardvark is won't help much if you can't even ask someone where the bathroom is.
Exactly! So if learning everything at once isn't helpful, how do we know what's actually worth learning first?
Great question. Instead of cramming random words, the trick is to focus on high-frequency words. These are the words people use constantly in daily life.
High-frequency words. Now that sounds much less intimidating. Can you give a few examples that everyone should know?
Absolutely. Think of words like go, want, help, food, time, and work. These pop up all the time, whether you're talking at work or just chatting with friends.
That actually makes me feel a lot better about starting out. So, do we really only need to learn a few hundred of these to get by?
Believe it or not, yes. Learning the 500 most common words covers a huge chunk, about 60% of everyday conversations.
That's wild. Just 500 words and you're already halfway there. Why do so many people still try to learn everything at once?
It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking more is better. But if you spread yourself too thin, you forget faster and don't actually get to use the words in real situations.
Also, that pressure to know everything just makes language learning feel impossible, right?
Exactly. Focusing on practical words keeps things manageable and way more motivating.
So, if someone's starting from zero, how should they set goals for learning these high-frequency words?
Start small. Try learning just 5 new words a day. It's enough to make progress, but not so much that you feel overwhelmed.
5 per day actually feels doable, even for someone with a busy schedule.
And if you keep at it, you'll have 500 words down in 100 days. That's only about 3 months, totally achievable.
Okay, but how do beginners actually find those top 500 high-frequency words? Is there a magic list somewhere?
There are plenty of resources. Many websites and language apps publish lists of the most common English words. Just make sure the list is geared toward everyday conversation, not academic jargon.
Good tip! I imagine it's easy to end up with a list full of obscure business terms by accident.
Exactly. Stick to lists that focus on daily life things you'd actually say or hear in real conversations.
Sometimes I hear people reciting complicated words they'll probably never use. Why does that happen so often?
Honestly, it's tempting. Big words feel impressive, but if you can't use them in daily life, you just end up frustrated and confused.
That's so true. I remember learning words like photosynthesis before I could order lunch.
Exactly. Focus on what actually matters to you now. There's always time for fancy words later.
Alright, so you've got your essential word list. Should you just memorize them or do something else to really make them stick?
Memorizing is a start, but using the words is where the magic happens. Try making sentences, chatting with friends, or even talking to yourself in the mirror.
That feels a bit silly, but I guess it works. Your brain remembers what you actually use.
Exactly. The more you use a word, the more natural it becomes.
When you're learning new words, is it better to cram a bunch in one day or stretch them out over time?
Stretching them out is way more effective. Spaced repetition, reviewing words over several days, helps you remember long-term, not just for a quiz.
So, a little bit every day beats marathon study sessions?
Every time. Your brain loves slow and steady progress.
Let's face it, sometimes even those 500 words can feel like a mountain. How do you avoid feeling overwhelmed?
Chunk it down! Break your list into smaller groups, like 10 words at a time, and celebrate every little victory.
That's such a relief. Celebrating progress makes it easier to keep going when things get tough.
Exactly! Progress is progress, no matter how small.
Do you recommend learning words on their own, or should we always try to see them in context?
Context is king. If you learn work from a list, that's fine, but it sticks so much better if you see it in a real sentence, like, I work at the library.
That makes sense. Seeing a word in action helps you remember its meaning and how to use it.
Exactly, and you'll be less likely to mix up similar words by mistake.
What about customizing your word list? Should people add words that fit their own lives, even if they're not on the standard lists?
Absolutely. If you love cooking, learn words about food and recipes. If you travel, pick words you'd use on a trip. Personal words stick better because you actually care about them.
That's a great point. Learning feels less like a chore when it's relevant to your interests.
Exactly, and you'll use those words more, so they become part of your everyday speech.
How can learners track their progress with vocabulary? Is there a way to see improvement that keeps you motivated?
Try keeping a notebook or using a language app that tracks how many words you learn. Watching your list grow is super encouraging.
I love that. If you see yourself improving, you're way less likely to give up.
Exactly. A little progress each day adds up fast.
Sometimes learning words feels tedious. Any ways to make it more fun?
Absolutely. Play word games, do flashcards with friends, or even watch shows and try to spot your new words. Fun makes learning stick.
I like that idea, turning study time into game time.
Exactly. Enjoying the process is half the battle.
Once you've got the first 500 words down, how do you know when you're ready to expand your vocabulary?
You'll know when you start bumping into words you see or hear a lot, but can't say yet. That's your cue to add the next batch, maybe topic-specific words or phrases from your hobbies.
So it's kind of a natural progression. Learn what you need, then grow from there.
Exactly. Language learning is step by step, not one giant leap.
All right, let's wrap up. What are the 3 big things listeners should remember from today's discussion?
First, focus on high-frequency words, not every word in the dictionary. Second, use the words in real life, not just on paper. Third, break learning into small, manageable steps and celebrate progress.
That's super clear. So, what's one action step people can take right now?
Pick a reliable high-frequency word list, learn 5 new words today, and use each in a real sentence out loud. Let your language journey start with one practical step.
Have you noticed how many students just nod along, even when they're totally lost? I want to talk about that. Why do you think asking questions is so scary for people?
Honestly, I think a lot of it boils down to shyness. People are afraid of looking silly or making a mistake in front of others, but the real irony is, staying quiet usually wastes way more time.
Exactly. If you're stuck and stay silent, you stay confused. But if you just raise your hand and say, "Wait, what does that mean?" you get clarity in seconds.
And the cool part is, asking that one question can break the ice for everyone else. You're probably not the only one who's confused.
You know, I used to think staying quiet meant I was being polite or respectful, but now I see it was just slowing me down.
I totally get that. The thing is, when shyness stops you from asking, you might spend hours trying to figure something out on your own, when you could have solved it in a flash.
And let's be real, that's time you never get back. 5 minutes of courage versus days of confusion? I'll take the courage, thanks.
Same here. It's amazing how fast everything gets easier once you get over that first question.
What surprises me is how just asking one question can speed up your whole learning process. It's like a shortcut straight to the answer.
Right, and it's not just about speed, it's about depth too. When you get direct feedback, you remember it way more vividly than if you just guess.
So every time you ask, you're not just getting the answer, you're wiring the concept into your brain.
Exactly. It's like your brain goes, "Oh, that's important, let's keep that one."
I feel like so many students are afraid to ask the simplest questions, like, "Can you repeat that?" Or, "Could you explain this word?" But honestly, those are the most useful ones.
Absolutely. I used to feel silly asking those, but now I see they're actually the questions that move you forward the fastest.
It's wild how quickly those little clarifications clear up a whole topic.
And after you've done it a couple times, you notice everyone starts feeling more comfortable too.
You mentioned something I love, making mistakes as the fast track to learning. That's such a powerful idea.
Yeah, every time you trip up and someone corrects you, it sticks. I still remember words I messed up years ago because the correction was so memorable.
It's almost like embarrassment turns into a superglue for your memory.
Exactly. And after a while, you stop fearing the mistakes and start appreciating them.
So, do you have any tips for people who are still really nervous about making mistakes out loud?
One thing that helped me was reframing mistakes as little victories. Every time I got corrected, I was one step closer to mastering something.
That's a mindset shift I wish I'd had sooner. It makes the whole experience feel lighter, less like a test and more like an experiment.
Exactly. And the more you practice that, the less intimidating mistakes become.
Speaking of practicing, what's one thing you did today that made you think, "Yep, that was time well spent"?
Just this morning, I read an English news article for 5 minutes and wrote down 3 new words. It was quick but super effective.
I love that, so small, but it adds up fast. For me, I practiced my pronunciation while making coffee. It felt ridiculous. But saying, "Coffee, please," and "Sugar, please" out loud honestly woke up my tongue.
That's such a great example, using those little pockets of time. It's not about hours, just consistency.
You know, people always talk about needing big chunks of time, but it's these 5-minute moments that really add up.
So true. I started with flashcards on the bus, and suddenly I knew 50 new words in a month. The secret is just using what you have, when you have it.
Exactly. And the bonus is, those quick practices keep your mind in learning mode throughout the day.
And honestly, it makes learning feel a lot less overwhelming.
You mentioned feeling silly practicing pronunciation at home. I think a lot of people can relate to that embarrassment. Any advice for getting past it?
Definitely. I used to whisper so nobody heard, but then I realized nobody cares as much as I think they do. Once I accepted that, practicing out loud got way easier.
It's like the fear is way bigger than the reality. The more you do it, the less you care if anyone's listening.
That's it, just start, even if you feel awkward. After a few tries, it's not weird anymore.
Let's circle back. How can teachers help shy students feel safe enough to ask questions?
Great question. I think teachers can model mistakes themselves, or even praise students for asking questions instead of always having answers.
So, making it normal to not know everything, turning the classroom into a place where curiosity is the norm.
Exactly. The more we celebrate questions, the more everyone learns faster and with less stress.
Actually, students can help each other too. I remember when a classmate asked something I was too shy to admit I didn't get. I was secretly so grateful.
Same here. Sometimes, just knowing someone else is confused makes it easier to speak up yourself.
So if you're brave enough to ask, you're probably helping more people than you realize.
Totally. It's like group courage. One person breaks the ice, and suddenly everyone joins in.
Let's get specific. What's a practical way someone could practice being braver about asking questions?
One idea. Write down questions during class, even if you don't say them out loud yet. Then, pick one to actually ask before the lesson ends.
I like that it's like building up your courage in small steps.
Exactly. And over time, it gets easier to just jump in with your question right away.
You know, we don't celebrate those tiny victories enough, like finally asking a question you've been sitting on, or practicing out loud at home.
Couldn't agree more. Those moments are huge for your confidence, even if they seem small.
And when you look back and realize how far you've come, it's those small steps that made all the difference.
It all adds up. Tiny wins, repeated daily, become fluency before you know it.
All right, let's wrap with our big takeaways. First, being brave enough to ask questions saves you tons of time and confusion.
Second, mistakes are not setbacks, they're your shortcut to learning. The brain holds on to those corrections like treasures.
And third, tiny, consistent practices, even if they feel silly, lead to real progress. Don't underestimate those 5-minute efforts.
So here's your practical step. Next time you're stuck, just ask one question even if your voice shakes. That's the fastest way forward.
Love that. Imagine this. You've just settled in, popcorn ready, Netflix up, and you hit play on a 3-hour English movie. Feels like you're acing English learning, right?
It totally feels productive at first glance, but this is what I call the movie illusion. You're surrounded by English sound, but if you're just reading subtitles in your own language, your brain isn't really working on English at all.
I can't be the only one guilty of this. So basically, we're tricking ourselves into thinking we're learning, but we're just reading subtitles.
Exactly. Your brain takes the easy road. If Chinese, Spanish, or whatever your native language is right there, your mind's not even trying to process the English. It's just reading what it already knows.
That's kind of wild to realize. Today, we're breaking down this trap, and by the end, you'll know a smarter way to use movies for real English gains. Stick around, because we'll cover why full movies rarely help, what to do instead, a powerful 3-step method, and even which shows will turbocharge your progress.
You know, the movie trap is sneaky because it feels fun and productive. The problem is, your brain is just looking for shortcuts.
Honestly, I've watched tons of English movies with Chinese subtitles and felt like a superstar. Turns out, it was all smoke and mirrors.
It's such a common story. If the subtitles are in your language, your brain chooses the path of least resistance and ignores all that juicy English you wanted to learn.
It's like I set up an English learning party and my brain decided to nap through it.
Perfect analogy. The key is to wake that brain up and make it actually work with the English it hears.
So let's get into the science a little bit. Why is our brain so quick to ditch English audio for familiar subtitles?
Brains are basically lazy. If it sees text it fully understands. It says, "Great, no need to try. I'll just glide along." The English audio becomes background noise.
It's like when you're meant to be listening in class, but end up doodling instead. Your brain always picks the easy route.
Exactly, and that's why, for real learning, you have to take away those shortcuts, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're a beginner, watching a whole movie with native language subtitles is almost useless for language learning.
That's a little painful to admit, but honestly, 2 hours of Avengers with Chinese subtitles didn't make me any closer to speaking English.
Right, you probably picked up a few superhero poses but not much else. The brain just zones out and sticks to what it knows.
So, what's the alternative? There has to be a smarter way.
Absolutely. The secret is don't watch the whole movie. For beginners, 2 hours is way too much information.
Wait, so you're saying just grab a tiny slice of the movie? Like, how small are we talking?
2 minutes. That's honestly enough. If you dive deep into just 2 minutes, you'll get way more real English than from 10 full movies.
That almost sounds too easy, but now I'm curious how that works. Okay, give us the magic formula. What's this 3-step method for using short clips?
Step 1. Watch your 2-minute clip with English subtitles and try to get the story. Step 2. Write down 3 new words or phrases you hear.
So far, that sounds super doable. What's step 3?
Step 3 is where the magic happens. Rewatch and shadow. That means you try to speak at the same time as the actor, matching their speed and emotion.
It's like being a ghost following them. That actually sounds kind of fun and challenging.
Exactly. Shadowing is powerful because your brain connects the sound to meaning instantly instead of translating in your head.
So if the actor says, "I'm so hungry," I try to say it exactly with them?
Yes. Try to match their tone, speed, and even their feelings. It forces your brain to process English in real time, no shortcuts.
That's such a cool trick. I'm definitely trying that with my next movie night. Or should I say, movie 2-minute break. Now I'm wondering, should I pick something epic like Game of Thrones or go for something lighter?
Oh, please don't start with Game of Thrones or Shakespeare. Those shows have super difficult words and complicated plots that'll just make you frustrated.
So, what's the gold standard for beginners then?
Honestly, sitcoms like Friends or The Big Bang Theory, or even better cartoons. The simpler the better.
Cartoons? Seriously? So, Peppa Pig or Disney movies count as English lessons now?
Absolutely. Cartoons are made for kids, so actors speak super clearly, the words are simple, and the visuals match the dialogue. If someone says, apple, you'll actually see an apple.
That's genius. No dictionary needed, your brain just gets it.
Exactly. And that's why even adults can learn a ton from just a few cartoon clips.
You know, my nephew watches Cocomelon every morning. Maybe I should just join him.
Honestly, go for it. There's no shame in starting with easy materials. It's way more effective than struggling through difficult shows and pausing every 10 seconds.
That takes so much pressure off. I always felt like I had to level up fast, but simple stuff is actually smarter.
Learning is about progress, not pride. The easier your materials, the less you'll need a dictionary, and the faster you'll pick up real English.
So, watching easy shows saves time, because you're not constantly stuck on words you don't know.
Exactly. The less you have to stop and look things up, the more you can actually enjoy and absorb the language.
And let's be honest, a fun cartoon beats a confusing drama any day when you're just starting out.
Totally agree. You can always move on to harder stuff once your ears and brain are ready.
Some people feel a little embarrassed watching shows for children. How do you get over that?
I get it, but honestly, kids learn languages better than adults. The trick is to learn like them, simple, repetitive, and visual.
That's true. Kids just soak it up, no fear or self-judgment.
Exactly. If you drop the pride and just enjoy the process, you'll be amazed what you can pick up.
So, to recap, mix fun with the right methods, and your English will grow so much faster.
Yes, Movies and shows are fantastic tools, but only if you use them smartly. Short clips, targeted shadowing, and simple content at first.
I'm feeling way more hopeful about my next study session and maybe ready for a little Peppa Pig binge.
Just remember, with the right approach, your movie night can actually become your best English lesson ever.
All right, listeners, here's your challenge. Pick a 2-minute cartoon or sitcom clip tonight and try the 3-step method: English subtitles, 3 new words, and shadowing.
Message us your favorite new word or phrase. We'd love to hear what you discover and maybe feature it on a future episode.
Let's turn the movie trap into an English learning win. Start small, be consistent, and have some fun along the way.
Who knows? You might find your new favorite show and a whole new confidence in English.
Let's wrap up with our top 3 takeaways. First, just watching movies with native language subtitles won't boost your English skills. It's mostly just reading.
Second, short clips around 2 minutes and focused study help you learn way more than marathon movie sessions.
Third, don't be afraid to use cartoons or easy shows. The simpler, the better for building real language skills.
And here's your action step. Tonight, pick a short, simple English clip and try the 3-step method. Share your results with us. We're cheering you on.
Thanks for joining the Smart Learning Show. Don't forget to subscribe and comment with your favorite English word.
See you next time, everyone. Happy learning.